After days of waiting for ballots to be counted, the American people have decided that Joe Biden is to be our 46th President of the United States. Hello, I'm Justin Geck.
And I'm Nick Palaio. From Kamala Harris's historic election to the celebrations happening right here in Philadelphia, we have complete coverage of what amounted to a historic election. This is a 2020 election special of LTV News. Election Day took place on Tuesday, November 3rd. However, it did not end as it normally does later that night. Instead, it took 4 days, as this year's election was mostly completed by mail-in ballots, and they all had to be counted. This election saw a record high turnout with at least 159.8 million votes cast. On Saturday, November 7th, it was announced the Democratic candidate Joe Biden had won and would become the 46th president of the United States. Biden had received over the amount of electoral votes needed to declare victory. This election was very close between both Biden and Donald Trump, as both candidates were neck and neck with votes in some states.
On the night of Saturday, November 7th, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took the stage in Wilmington, Delaware for the first time as president-elect and vice president-elect. Biden had been declared the winner of the election earlier in the day and were at the Chase Center in Wilmington to give their victory speeches to supporters. It was a different scene as supporters sat in their vehicles and others around the stage wore masks. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris took the stage first to deliver her speech, choosing to focus on breaking barriers as the first female biracial vice president in our nation's history. Harris talked about the importance of democracy, stating that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it and never take it for granted. President-elect Joe Biden then took the stage to thank his supporters and also talk about the challenges ahead. Biden asked for President Trump's supporters to give him a chance and that he would work hard for them. His final message was on uniting the country, saying, "I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide but unify." The event ended with applause and fireworks.
President Trump has still refused to concede the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden, with the president doubling down on his claims of voter fraud after what was a chaotic and unprecedented election season. Now, senior aides to the president are saying a concession may never come, even after all of the vote counts are certified as official. Top aides describe a chaotic White House dismayed by Trump's refusal to accept the results of the election, with some saying the president may announce his intentions to run another campaign for the GOP in 2024. Meanwhile, President Trump's legal strategy, consisting of a string of 17 lawsuits filed in state and federal courthouses across the country, has yet to bear fruit, as no lawsuit or investigation has proven the type of widespread voter fraud the president insists has occurred. The president and his legal team continue to insist that fraud exists, highlighting a lack of Republican access to the count and fake mail-in ballots as hallmarks of an attempt to steal the election from the president.
In regards to the House and Senate races for the 2020 election, Republicans held a 3-seat advantage to Democrats in the Senate prior to Election Day. Democrats hoped to flip 4 seats and hold 11 seats in the Senate to then take control of the chamber. Democrats fell short of their intentions after only ending up flipping 2 seats in Arizona and Colorado. Although Democrats did indeed defend the 11 previous seats in the Senate, 2 Senate races in Georgia are both heading into runoffs in January. These 2 races, between Senator David Perdue, a first-term Republican, and Jon Ossoff, the Democratic nominee, and between Raphael Warnock, a Democrat, and Senator Kelly Loeffler, the Republican incumbent. These 2 races, being held in January on the 5th, will determine which party will control the Senate.
Well, talk about an election. I mean, this year went from election day to election week. I think from Tuesday, actual election day, through Saturday, both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, were on the seat of their pants, watching the vote count, lamenting the fact that they wish the count would happen faster, angry about the fact that people were not counting ballots throughout the night, but people in fact had to sleep, and just waiting and waiting, and finally we find out on Saturday that the race has been called for former Vice President Joe Biden. I'm sure we all, since it wasn't too long ago, we all remember where we were. I was in the midst of working on a group project. I was actually in a meeting when I looked down at my phone, and of course all these news alerts come up that, you know, the Associated Press, NBC, CNN, all of the main outlets had projected Joe Biden as the winner. Aaron, I know you were at work, so you probably saw a lot of things that were happening.
Yeah, since I was at work when I found out that Joe Biden was elected president, I witnessed a lot of different reactions from different people, like my coworkers, some customers, and it was just very interesting to see the people that were very excited and very happy, the people that voted for Biden. And then I also saw on the other side people who are Trump supporters and they wanted Trump to win, so they were obviously disappointed, and it was just very interesting to witness all of these various reactions firsthand.
Well, Nick, like you, I actually was doing some homework for a class, and all of a sudden my phone blew up going, Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania and is now the president-elect of the United States. So I got up and ran downstairs and, put the TV on, and I kind of was glued there for the rest of the coverage time. And my mom and I actually went to Wilmington on Saturday night when it was announced and he was going to do his victory speech. So we went down to the Chase Center, and it was just, very empowering. Seeing Kamala Harris, the first female, get up and just, accept this nomination, and both of them just not kind of bashing the Trump supporters, but kind of talking about unifying and moving this country forward after these 4 years of, all these different things that have happened that are unusual. So it was very exciting, I think, but definitely a nail-biting couple of days, to say the least. With election 2020 finally coming to an end, there have been many questions on Americans' minds about the outcome and how our country will move forward. Our producer, Sam Long, had the chance to speak with Dr. David Robison, chair of the Political Science Department, to get answers. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. I'm back again this week for another interview. Today, I'm virtually sitting down with Dr. David Robison from the Salle Political Science Department to talk about the election, just because this is our election update special. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Dr. Robison. So, first, I'm just going to jump right into it. Is this the outcome you expected leading up to this election?
I am really bad at predicting elections, so I decided this time I wasn't even going to make a prediction. One other quick point, while I'm chair of the Political Science Department, I'm also chair of economics, and my degree is actually in economics. I am not a political scientist.
Well, we can tie that in. So, where do you see Biden's economic policies going as far as?
Okay, I think Biden, obviously everything depends on how cooperative things end up being, whether the Democrats take the Senate or not. But Biden's main directions seem to be focused on, one, addressing the virus so that the economy can come back, and then two, giving some additional stimulus to try and help small businesses survive until we can get past the virus. Given the development of the vaccines, it looks like that might be a relatively short period now, like maybe 3 months to 6 months before a sizable portion of the population can be vaccinated. Assuming the vaccines are in fact as effective as they're currently being advertised, the economy can then start really regaining strength June, July, August of next year, somewhere in that range. And then we should start to move back to something like normal thereafter. The other main direction Biden has signaled repeatedly is he wants to emphasize education policy. So he wants to address some of the student debt issues. He wants to move away from supporting so many of the for-profit private schools that the Trump administration has been supporting. that sort of direction suggests investment in human capital, the education of the American workforce.
Okay, so you were touching upon just everything the Biden administration plans on doing. How does that differ now from what Trump's trying to do in office in regards to trying to get some kind of control over this pandemic?
Well, in terms of the pandemic, the Trump administration never developed a coordinated federal government level strategy. They kind of said, let's let the states do it on their own. And then when that wasn't working, they stepped in a little bit here and a little bit there, and in very awkward ways. So in many cases, the federal government was trying to buy up the same supplies that the state and local governments were after. And so they actually competed, bidding up the price of the supplies that everybody needs. So it was not a coordinated response. The Biden administration has signaled that they want to do a more coordinated response so that there would be a federal program which might buy and distribute the supplies. There might be a more federalized system of providing the testing and those kinds of things.
So do you think a more federalized system is going to end up being more effective than the way things are being run now, where the states are being left just to do what they please?
In theory, it should work better so that the supplies can flow to the places where they're most needed when they're most needed.
Yeah.
The current system has generally been, and you end up with states and even municipalities saying, oh, we'll lend you some doctors and here are some ventilators. But that's not flowing through any system. So that, if New York City is helping, say, Chicago, but the biggest need's actually in El Paso.
Yeah.
We're not allocating things really effectively. And that, to me, is the biggest mistake that the Trump administration has made.
Yeah, it seems like we need supplies and more hotspots that aren't getting necessarily what they need. I know I'm in Jersey, but I'm 15 minutes away from PA. I know right over the bridge there's new enforcement starting on Friday. And in Jersey, there's going to be something probably happening within the next few weeks. But leaving each state to kind of make their own guidelines and boundaries, do you think that's a little more dangerous than just letting, like you were saying, one federalized plan? You think that would be a little more effective if they just put their foot down and say, this is what everyone has to do? Or does it not work like that?
Well, for some things, it works well. So if we're going to distribute ventilators and PPE to the most needed areas, we need to coordinate that. For some things, it won't work as well. So for example, some areas still don't have a whole lot of COVID. There's no great need to shut those areas down.
Yeah.
Where COVID is really strong, we do need to try to address that problem. And so we don't want to have a federal system saying, look, everybody shut everything down for a month, right? That would be a big problem for the economy. We need to make sure that we've done the things at the federal level that make sense at the federal level, and then let the local governments decide about those additional issues.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that you're not necessarily one for good predictions, but do you think if Biden's economic plans go in the policy right away, if they're somewhat effective, we can successfully kind of jumpstart the economy back up, hopefully, to some kind of normality?
We will start moving in that direction. How fast depends on how much we save.
Yeah.
So if there is a new stimulus program and it helps more small businesses survive until we can move back to normal, then I expect the economy will come back a little more quickly. If no new stimulus is passed, then we're going to see more small businesses permanently close. They're going to declare bankruptcy. They're going to close. And then we have a much longer way to go in order to get the economy back to normal. And that will slow it all down because we literally just have farther to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. I'm fingers crossed that these policies go into place right away and we can kind of hop back to some kind of normality in the next year. But like I said, neither one of us are good with predictions, so we can't tell the future.
Not a prediction, but a hope is that I would hope that they could pass a stimulus bill, right? So there was a stimulus bill that was being discussed before the election. They said, well, let's wait till after the election. So now we're after the election. I'd like them to get on that, because if we delay until Biden is in office, that's an extra 2 months of businesses going out permanently. And that just makes us that much further behind in terms of getting the economy to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And
You're quite welcome.
I'm going to send it back over to the desk.
Seeing as Joe Biden is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, only a few hours from Center City and a few hours from Pittsburgh, the question comes to mind, what team does Biden root for? Lucky for the greater Philadelphia area, Biden is a diehard Philly sports fan. He has professed his love for Philly sports before and cited his wife, Jill, as a Philly superfan. Biden was even there for the first ever Eagles Super Bowl win in 2018.
After days of questioning whether or not Biden would win Pennsylvania, an important swing state for either candidate, news broke on Saturday, November 7th, that Biden had won the state and the presidency. Despite trailing by some 700,000 votes on election night, Biden was able to secure the state for after mail-in counting began. Thanks to the 2.6 million mail-in ballots in the state count, Biden was able to secure the state's 20 electoral votes.
Celebrations of the Biden-Harris win can be found all across the city of brotherly love. Crowds of Philadelphians took the streets on the night of November 7th to celebrate the announcement of Joe Biden as the 2020 president-elect. Many gathered outside of the Pennsylvania Convention Center, where ballots had been being counted since Election Day. In a quote from a Biden supporter to 6ABC News, quote, "I never thought America could get back to such a place of collective love, a place where we can unionize like this," unquote. Cars blasted horns and pedestrians waved street signs on corners in Chestnut Hill. Music was played as a large group gathered for a Biden rally at Independence Mall. Mayor Jim Kenney made an appearance at this rally and said, quote, "This was like a second Super Bowl. I'm waiting for the parade," unquote. On November 7th, ecstatic Philadelphians celebrated America's democracy in the country's birthplace.
There is nothing like a relaxing stay at the Four Seasons. That is, unless you end up at the wrong one. Four Seasons Total Landscaping, a Philadelphia groundskeeping company sandwiched between a crematorium and a sex shop, was the site of a Trump administration news conference where on Saturday, Rudy Giuliani somehow held a press conference about baseless claims of voter fraud. Since the mix-up, the landscaping company's sales have skyrocketed, even selling out merchandise, making puns on Trump's merchandise, such as "Make America Rake Again."
So, Nick and Justin, with all of us being relatively close to Philadelphia, I'm sure you guys saw and heard about all of the love going around in the city of brotherly love with celebrations after the win was announced.
Of course. How can we miss it? I know that Joe and Dr. Jill Biden visited Philly on Veterans Day for a special ceremony with Mayor Kenney. I'm sure he was greeted fantastically by the people of Philadelphia. I know that he received overwhelming support. I don't know the exact percentages, but it was an overwhelming margin of support from the people of Philadelphia. Joe is considered, I think, in some circles to be a Philly local, a Philly native of the tri-state area, at least. I know that Dr. Jill Biden, considers herself a Philly girl through and through, growing up in New Jersey and now living, of course, with Joe in Delaware. Big Philly sports fans. And you not just one sport. I mean, when you're a Philly sports fan, you're a fan of all the sports. So it's exciting to have someone so homegrown, so local, be in the White House. Justin, what did you think of the celebrations?
I think I was watching the news, and it was interesting to see not only Philadelphia, but all of the different major cities with how they partook in the news that Biden became the president-elect. And Philadelphia, it was really neat because a lot of people went to Independence Hall, I believed, and gathered there where our government kind of started all those years ago. So it was great to see that. And, again, like you were saying, Joe Biden, not a stranger to Philadelphia. And he also, is working with Penn on the cancer center, I think, because as we know, his son, Beau Biden, died a couple years ago from brain cancer. So I know he's very involved with Penn and trying to find, different things to see how we can get that under control.
Yeah, I even saw Mayor Jim Kenney said at one of the Biden rallies that this win felt like another Super Bowl win.
Since the assassination of JFK in 1963, a Catholic has not occupied the Oval Office. That will all change come January, with Joe Biden's inauguration making the second time a Catholic ascends to the nation's highest office. The president-elect made sure to emphasize his faith during his victory speech, making references to Michael Jonas on Eagle's Wings, going as far as to even recite some lyrics from the popular Catholic hymn. Biden attended Mass on Election Day and in the days following, also paying a visit to the graves of his son Beau, first wife Nelia, and daughter Naomi. With Catholicism the largest religious denomination in the U.S., religious leaders hope a Biden presidency will ensure Catholic culture re-enters the national conversation.
Vice President-elect Kamala Harris not only makes history as the first woman in the White House, but also as the first biracial vice president of the United States. In her victory speech on November 7th in Wilmington, Kamala Harris spoke about her mother and also about generations of women who paved the way for her to accomplish her major advancement toward America growing into a more racially diverse and accepting country. In this inspirational victory speech, Kamala Harris said, quote, "While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities," unquote. She has risen higher than any woman in the country in her political career. As the daughter of a Jamaican father and an Indian mother, she has experienced racial injustice during her life. She has endured these challenges and made the remarkable achievement of being the first woman of color in the White House.
The president-elect's transition team has announced a COVID-19 advisory board, taking steps now to put together a Biden administration pandemic response ready for implementation in January. 2 doctors from the Philly area are being counted among the task force's members. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, an oncologist, the vice provost for global initiatives and chair of the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy at the University of Pennsylvania, has been appointed a task force member. In addition to Dr. Julie Marita, vice president of the Princeton, New Jersey-based Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The task force is meeting amidst promising news from Pfizer and BioNTech, who recently announced clinical trial results from their vaccine candidate demonstrating 90% effectiveness against contracting COVID-19.
Now that Joe Biden has been elected as our next president, many Americans have wondered who he will pick for his cabinet when he takes office. He needs to build a governing team to help him tackle a historic pandemic and rebuild the economy. The Biden transition team has already been vetting potential candidates for months and will present the president-elect with choices in the coming days. The potential list of people for the cabinet includes Michelle Flournoy, who's the CEO of West Texas and eyed for Defense Secretary, Senator Tammy Duckworth eyed for Veterans Affairs Secretary, former Ambassador Susan Rice eyed for Secretary of State, Lael Brainerd eyed as Secretary of Treasury, and Senator Doug Jones eyed for the Attorney General position. All of these people are speculated and not decided upon. A final list of the people chosen will be announced officially by the Biden transition team soon. Nick and Aaron, it's just very great to see history being made with Kamala Harris being the first female vice president, but also the first biracial female as well. I mean, we've had President Obama, who's African American, and Kamala Harris is African American, and I also believe Indian American as well. So I'm very excited that Joe Biden, first off, picked a woman as his running mate, and we're actually seeing her become the first female out of a whole bunch of males.
Yeah,
I think that's what we want to see. We want to see our leaders be representative of the country. And what really spoke to me was how impactful this election has been for women of color and their children. I think that we've seen countless stories of little girls watching Kamala's victory speech going, that she looks like me. And I think that before they might not have envisioned someone who looked like them being in the second highest office in the land. I mean, the second most powerful person in the world. But now we see that. And I think that speaks to the progressivism of the American people. I think it's a testament to how far we've come as a nation. I mean, look 50 years ago, 60 years ago, where this country was and where we are today, having elected or presumably elected the first female African-American, Indian-American woman to the vice presidency. I think it is just profound, and I think it's so inspirational for women, and I think it should be for all Americans.
Yeah, it's just so amazing because coming from a country where women weren't even allowed to vote at all at one point, and now we have a woman and a biracial woman as the vice president-elect, it is just so empowering. And Kamala Harris's accomplishment not only paves the way for biracial women, but all women in America.
So, Nick, do you have some news?
So, yes, I do. As you may or may not know, this is LTV News's last episode for the fall 2020 season. However, it is also my last episode as anchor and co-producer of this fantastic program, this fantastic show that fantastic network that I've called home for now over 3 years. I started out at LTV News, or LTV in general, Salle TV, as I was saying in one email, a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed freshman who had no idea how TV production worked. I had no idea how you put a show together. Looking back, I knew absolutely nothing. And I worked my way. Freshman year, I worked on a lot of different shows. I tried my hand at everything. I was eventually given the opportunity at the end of my freshman year to join this amazing production team. And I worked my way up now to sitting on the anchor desk with Justin and Aaron. And it has been an absolute honor, privilege. I've said it before, I say it again, LTV was the first organization I joined when I came to LaSalle. And it's one that I hold near and dear, even though quite a while ago I transitioned away from studying media and journalism officially. I study public relations and interpersonal communication during the day when I'm actually in class. But I always knew I wanted to stay with LTV and LTV News especially because I care so much about the news. And I care about the current events, the issues affecting our country. This episode is the perfect episode for me to end on. It is right up my alley. This election cycle has been one for the record books, and it has been a pleasure putting this episode together and reporting the news and what's been going on and how it's affecting all of us.
Well, Nick.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Nick, well, we really, I really appreciate all of your drive, your dedication to our news program over these past few years. Being able to help out real quick and being able to, put our producer meetings together and going over what stories and all that, and, taking the time to make sure everybody is on track and all that. I remember, I think when you first began, I think one of our first episodes together was when you had just started at the desk. I remember, I think, how nervous you were when we were on desk, and, you had asked me all kinds of different questions, and you really did an outstanding job that first day on the desk. And, you continued to improve every time that you came in on the desk and we were together. So, I'm really excited for you for this new endeavor that you're going. And, I wish you all the best and continued luck.
Thank you, Nick, for
thank you.
welcoming me to LTV News last year when I was that bright-eyed and bushy-tailed freshman who knew nothing about TV production. You shared your expertise with me about reporting the news and about TV production. So thank you, because my LTV News career started with you at the desk last year. So we're going to miss you so much.
Well, you are more than welcome, and I know that I am leaving this show in beyond capable hands. Aaron, Justin, I know you will dominate on the anchor desk. I know that Sam will continue to produce those fire interviews. That will be fantastic. And I know we have a couple underclassmen in the pipeline who are quite interested in sitting in my position one day, and I am more than happy to pass the torch. So like I said, it's been an honor and a privilege. I thank both of you. I thank our viewers for continuing to watch. And I am excited for this new chapter in my life, this new endeavor I'm taking on next semester. And I look forward to watching these episodes next semester as a civilian, as no longer part of the team, but I know I'll always be part of the LTV family in one way, shape, or form. So thank you, guys. That does it for our LTV News Election 2020 special. Keep up with our continuing coverage and the entire LaSalle TV network online through our LaSalle TV Philly YouTube page.
Until next semester, for Nick Palayo, Aaron Holly, and Sam Long, I'm Justin Gick. Thanks for tuning in. Be well, stay healthy, and please continue to wear a mask.